Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow. Sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know. What that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man.
Welcome to another episode of the Shades of a Man podcast. I'm here with another extraordinary individual by the name of Jesse White. But before I introduce him, I'm not even gonna introduce him. I'm gonna let him introduce himself and his accolades and who he is, because I've heard him speak many times and he does a great job of that. And I would be doing him a disservice by introducing him. So just tell the people who you are.
So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your platform. You could never do me a disservice. I always say I'm a man of God, right? Like that's the greatest thing that I could say about me, is that God allowed me to be shaped in his likeness and his image. I am a principal by trade. I'm an educator by trade, principal of Bloomfield High School. And I'm also a creative. I have a brand called Anti-Cant. Shout out to all those who have supported the Anti-Cant brand. I'm a father of 3 wonderful young ladies, husband of 1 wife, Walida White, who's always supporting. So, once she puts her spin on it, of course, this episode is going to go through the roof. And I'm very, very happy to be here. I think you and I may have met through the Fatherhood Monologues, and just some of the work that we've both been able to do with Brother Abdul and some of the other guys who have been a part of that Fatherhood Monologue thing. So, I'm just aspiring to be all that God would have me to be.
That's amazing. And as I dove digging and will dig the rest of my life back into my spiritual essence, it's the people that just God brings into my life and has been for the last 3 years. It's like amazing. You never know who you are talking to that God is putting right in front of you.
That's right.
Good and bad. Good
That's
and
right.
bad. You never know who the messenger is. You never know who the messenger is. That's why my grandfather always taught me to treat everyone the same, because you never know who the messenger is.
That's
so,
right.
So we're going to dive into this. And this episode is going to go all over the place, man, because like being a fellow educator,
Mm-hmm.
I've been educating now for over 25 years. So we've seen a lot in our days. So I'm going to start with this poem that was inspired by Dr. Kevin Booker, who
My guy.
I'm sure you know, right? Everybody knows Bowtie Booker.
Yes.
And in our circle, everybody knows Bowtie Booker, but the world's going to know him soon as well.
That's right.
And one of the things, when we were teaching at Fox Middle School in 2000, and I might get the year wrong, I think it was 2006, we worked in an all boys cluster. And
is that
we
the
had
Benjamin E. Mays?
No, it was Eugene Green, the Eugene
Okay.
Green Institution, right?
Okay.
I think the woman was the girls cluster. So we had boys cluster, girls, science. There was several clusters, all had names after significant individuals in the Hartford community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had some challenging students, and Booker one time just said to the kid, you need to think outside the block. And right there, and at the time I was writing a lot of poetry. So right away I was like, because we were going to the Russell, that they had open mic night all the time. And I was like, oh, boom, ding, 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 ding. And I came up with this poem. And when I listened to anti-cant, right? A lot of anti-cant, from my perspective, is because you just don't know. Like you think you can't because you don't know anything different, because you're thinking in this box or this block. And once you expand, once you play golf, you say, oh my goodness, I like it. Or once you play tennis or you learn something different, you realize that it's not a social or cultural thing. It's a liking thing once you try something. So this is what I came up with. So I'm gonna read this, and I'm trying to use technology. So instead of my paper, I got 2 screens here. So my head might turn this way.
No worries.
So bear with me. Outside the block. The streets taught me pain, but never taught me joy. Taught me how to survive, but not how to grow in the rain. Corners got codes and blocks got street laws. Wow. But none of them ever heal my flaws.
Mm.
A street mind will trap you in a concrete or metal cage. 3 hots in a cot or glued to the block from that built up rage. If you want to rise, add more diversity to your stock. Can't change your life if you can't think outside the block.
I
So that's the
love it.
poem. As I fixed this lighting that just cut off, it kind of went with the poem though, like the darkness went out.
I was gonna comment about that for sure. Yeah.
Something's going on with my light right now. I don't know what's going on. You change up the settings, see if that works. All right.
I tell you, if I could say
yeah.
something about that real quickly.
Yes.
So one thing that I did not say is I come from Edgewood Street, right? And for those who know, like Edgewood Street is in the north end of Hartford, and there are a lot of people who will say, nothing good comes from that area or whatever the case is. But I know so many people who have come from or live in, right? Because I think a lot of times we talk about where we came from, meaning that we're not still there. But a lot of people who still live in the area that I live, right? And so thinking outside the block, I think, is important. At the same time, I think how our perspective of our block, right, and where we currently are is also extremely significant, right? So when I think about the fact that, we had a pond house and people actually go fishing, at the pond, in the pond house. Now, mind you, back then it wasn't as nice as it is now, but somebody in their mind had the idea to revitalize that area and to do something with that area, not necessarily change the people. So I'm not talking about gentrification or any of that, but I'm talking about just making the spot where we are beautiful. And when they did that, then others said, hey, you know what? Maybe I can go fishing right here in my own pond, right? The basketball course, I'll never forget, there were woods, and so you couldn't really see through to the park. And what they did was they cut down a lot of the trees and they revitalized the basketball hoops. And it was special. I mean, it really was special what they did in our own neighborhood. So while I understand the premise behind thinking outside the block and thinking outside the box, and I think that's important, I also think that it's equally as important to understand and recognize the beauty in where you currently are.
That's extremely profound, because when you do recognize beauty in where you are, you treat it like beauty.
Absolutely.
And I remember I had a student I was mentoring years ago, and I used to pick him up at his house, and I would pick him up at his house. He lived off of Granby Street, so one of those side roads, and a pretty nice house. And I picked him up, and he came out the house, and he threw down a banana peel before he got into my car. I said, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "What?" He goes, "Oh, the stray cats are the." I said, "No. I said, this is your neighborhood." He goes, "Oh," and he gave, everyone does this. I said, "But you're not everyone." I said, "You have to lead." I said, if you lead and pick up, somebody else will see you, and then they'll pick up, and then all of a sudden you have everyone picking up, and then you have a clean neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and that goes into what you're talking about, is when you giving people, the poem is great, like, but your perspective is giving people something beautiful where they are.
Yeah.
You don't have to go outside the walls.
Yeah. And the other part of it is, so I think about our kids now, right? Working in a school, a lot of people's, block or box is the cell phone. You know what I mean? And it's like, what do I see on the cell phone? So, I'll see, girls, everybody got their edges done the same kind of way, or got their lashes on, because that's their block now. You know what I mean? It's not going outside, it's not being in the streets, it's being on the phone. And so everybody is in this, 4x4, 5x5, whatever, block right here. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it is, recognizing and appreciating the beauty, but then stepping outside of this as well, right? And really stepping out into the streets. My dad, this past weekend, this past week, we had a week off from school. And so as a principal, we go in every day, but I actually took a couple of days off, and my dad said, "Hey, let's go fly fishing." Now, I've lived in Connecticut my whole life, right? I went to college in Connecticut, and so I spent a lot of time here, obviously. But he took me out to a place past a town called Riverton. And I've ridden to Riverton on my bike because that's one thing I like to do. I cycle, I run, I do all this kind of stuff. And we went to Riverton, and I fly fished for the first time in my life. And just standing in the Farmington River near the dam, where they had released like 10,000 fish and all that, it was like I was in a different state. It really was. And my mom, like, wow, like, who knew that this was in Connecticut, But again, it goes back to stepping outside of the hustle and bustle of like our technology and our computers and this and that and the other. And for our kids, I would say, like, step outside of your phone, right? And really taking time to appreciate like what you have all around you. But I would never have that perspective. And I think this is going back full circle to what Booker was trying to tell that young man. You would never truly appreciate, everything that's out there for you, if you only stay, on your square. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, we could go around this for days, but it is really a profound thought, and a profound poem that you've written. It has me thinking so many different things, but I don't want to take over, going through that. But yeah.
So I write a script for every podcast.
Okay.
And when I put this script together, I'll send you the poem so you can kind of see where I'm thinking. I'll send you the script. So I started off this script. The social media, the new block, trapping young people mentally. And so you brung that up, like, without me even segueing, because that was part of my discussion, is like, what is the new thing that has to be, that we're dealing with? And in education, and this is why it's important that you have a principal. I've been an athletic director, taught from K to 12. I taught kindergarten to 12th grade. So I've been in every level. And we were not, as educators, we're still not prepared for the technology. Technology went so fast that education is trying to catch up to technology, and the kids, and the kids are the ones lost.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You know what? There's a guy, I just met him maybe 3 weeks ago. His name is Mike Perna. He's a Gen Z expert. And this guy, his message is so profound. You're talking about a guy who got up and spoke very quickly, at a rapid pace for an hour and 15 minutes without, taking a breath. Was going. He has that depth of knowledge around Gen Z. And what he's saying is, like, these kids never waste time. He said they do exactly what they want to do at the moment. So for us, we may say, hey, you're stuck in your phone, you're doing whatever. But for them, this is what I want to do right now with my life. What we got to do is try to match the possibilities that are out there and the possibilities that haven't yet been materialized to what they want to do, right? So that kid who is into, playing shoot 'em up video games. Well, we know that, there's a whole market for drones and things of that nature, right? So that might be the thing that might make that kid like really, really tap in. But now we got to match what's out there with what the kid needs at the moment, as opposed to trying to make them do what we want them to do and then say, hey, I hope, have faith that when you finish with all of this that we're telling you to do, that something's going to be ready for you, And so it's like, it's just a different shift in perspective. And I think that the most profound educators are able to be malleable. You think about some of these superstars, the actors, the musicians or whatever that stay relevant for 20, 30 years. The reason that they're able to do that is because they're able to be malleable and shift with the times, as opposed to trying to make today fit with what happened yesteryear, right? And what we got emotionally attached to because that was a great point in our lives,
Mm. The good old days,
Right.
right? We
Right.
always refer to the good old days and, going back. And I believe the reality is that everything cycles with technology. So the same
Yeah.
problems exist. The only difference is that the technology is more advanced or different.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you fought wars with uh, when you had to stuff it in there and shoot one
Right.
time, and then you went to a revolver. Then you went to the
Right.
innovative was the M16 and the flyer jets, and it just we still have the same problems, just
Right.
technology. So the root doesn't change, because
Right.
that's God made, right? The
Right.
roots is God made. It's not going to change, but we have
Right.
the ability with free will to just explore the life, and it gets very
Yeah.
complicated. And technology, like I think about my grandfather who was born in 1910 and
Mm.
died in 2001,
Oh, wow.
and I, I I just recall like him talking about how amazed he was as a child, like watching the TV, how they would just like the TV was just like, oh my goodness, and the refrigerator, like
Right.
in your home, because they had an ice box where you put ice, and having running water, like things that we take for granted
Right.
yesteryear was amazing. And so when you can, and you just said something that sparked this ramble is that what we look at as like like just normal, my grandfather looked at it as like incredible. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You just and the same thing with the kids. The kids, like, they're born with the cell phone, right? We
Right.
weren't. I know how to detach. Like when I lose my cell phone, as much as I'm like, oh, people gonna be mad at me, I'm happy. Like I'm sincerely, I'm like, thank goodness I have an excuse for 24, 48 hours that people don't have me connected for that long. But
Right.
a kid loses it. My son loses his cell phone. He's like scratching and like itching. Like they can't handle it because they haven't experienced it. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
interesting. Whew.
I mean, this year we started something where it was like, look, there are no cell phones in Bloomfield High School, right? And so what we do is when you come into the school, you're supposed to put your cell phone in your locker and it's supposed to be out of sight. Now, I told a parent, I don't have the bandwidth nor the desire to go and check every single student to see if they actually put it in their locker or if it's in their book bag or in their pocket. But I should not see it, right? If I see it, then I'm gonna confiscate it. Um, and you'll be surprised how many students were like, you know what? This is actually like a better experience. Like I get the opportunity to like talk to my friends, converse and step outside of, like you said, the new technological block and actually see what's on somebody's mind face to face, as opposed to um, interacting and becoming friends with somebody who I'll never see outside of my phone. You know, and so it's extremely important that we help them develop the tools. I remember I met this guy. We were going to a conference, and the guy asked me a question. He said, "You're a principal." He said, "What do you see as like the major issue with our kids today?" And I said, "Well, I feel like our kids are quicker learners than we were. I feel like they have much more information." So, but what I think has not caught up that I believe that we had is just the character. So, you have a kid now who will spend, however much time doing something that may not necessarily be helpful to their future, just because they have the ability to do it. Whereas with a lot of us, and I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of us we had enough character to know, you know what, we need to do this work now and then we can play later, as opposed to play. And then when it's time to reap the benefits, think that the benefits are just coming because, as opposed to knowing, hey, these benefits are coming because of the work that I actually put in, you know? So
Mhm.
it's so many different things. But a lot of it has to do with, I feel like just the character and what you have on the inside, which you just referenced, like that's not going to change, right? Those roots are something that is just a part of our human experience.
Mm. So I want to talk about like mindset versus environment. And so, and I say the mindset versus environment because I invite like poverty doesn't mean poor work ethic. And I think a lot of times, like when I tell people I teach in Hartford, or now East Hartford, they automatically thought, oh, those kids are this and those kids are that, because the mindset is that they're poor, right?
Right.
And when I was in North Carolina, like the trailer parks, which were predominantly white, were considered the bad places because the people were poor. And
Hmm.
what I and sometimes so I've had a ton of refugees in my teaching career from
Mm.
Nepal, from Haiti, from what was the other place? Nepal, Haiti, from South Korea, just all kind of refugees that when they're in war and they end up, in Harvard schools. And
Yep.
the best students I've ever had were refugees that
Yep.
struggled immensely, that came from war, that watched people like die, as some of our students may have throughout their lives. And just like I had this student, and I'm not gonna say her name, but like the first day she could say two words: bathroom and English. She spoke
Hmm.
Haitian and French. Bathroom
Mm.
and water. She was a ninth grade student. I taught Read 180 at the time. By the
Mhm.
end of the first year, she was on 1,000 Lexile level,
Oh, wow.
right?
Wow.
And when I discovered who she was at the end of the year, we gave all the kids like notes, like for the teachers, and said write things that you like about teachers and write them on the notes. Then we put it all over the school. And she wrote a note to me. She goes, "Mr. Hauser is my favorite teacher because he gives us snacks." Right.
Mm.
And at first,
Okay.
I chuckled at first. I chuckled. I laughed. And at the time, this year was, I don't know if you remember, the year we had all the snow and they had to close schools because they had to shovel the roof,
Yep.
the snow off the roof and all this stuff. So we had extended school days for like the last like month of school. So I started
Yep.
giving the kids snacks because they were in school at 3:30 and started at 7. And she
Mhm.
took that like and so at first I chuckled, but then I said, man, like that must be like for her to say that to me must be.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, what is like how come you like me because I gave you snacks? So I don't think nothing of it, like giving you food.
Right.
And she was, in my country, if someone gives you food, that means they really care about you because where I lived, there wasn't much food.
Oh, wow.
And it really hit me deep to really realize what she really came from. The
Yeah.
value,
Yeah.
because we value food, but I don't know if you see this in your school, our lunch is free.
Right.
The kids throw away so much. They throw
Yeah.
away so much. It hurts me
Yep.
when you have people that don't have food never will discard it because they
Right.
don't know the next time it's coming around. And that's how she felt. And I just thought that was a
Right.
significant story about like our environments. Like
Yes.
we consider like Hartford poor, and
Right.
kids do have problems, but some of them have problems and they have Jordans and a cell phone and a flat screen TV. And then
Right.
there's another environmental poor that they don't know when they're going to eat. And
Right.
I think that once you pass that level, most of those people will do anything to be successful.
Yep. Yep.
And that middle ground, for some reason, that poor but not poor, poor but I can eat, poor but
Yep.
you know is kind of that funny area. Like, give me enough crumbs, I'm gonna survive, but I'm really not gonna thrive
Right.
because I have enough.
Right.
And I don't know what
Man,
I don't know what you think about that.
man, I mean, you talked about so much in a short period of time, right? First of all, going back to Hartford, right? And you just talked about like sort of the evolution of like warfare and weaponry, right? Going from, the taking your gunpowder, and
Right.
stuffing it in and all that. Well, there was a young man by the name of Samuel Lewis Colt who was right in Hartford, Connecticut. And his parents, my understanding is that he was a poorly behaved young man. And his parents sent him away, and he found himself on a merchant ship. And on the merchant ship, he realized that the captain's wheel had like spaces in it. And him and his demented yet genius mindset said, hey, that might be a good way for us to develop a gun. And so if you look at a revolver, each of those chambers there, if you had a steering column, that is what do you call it? A sailor's like wheel. And that one invention put the U.S. ahead of everybody else, because everybody else is one, bang, two. Whereas the U.S. stars now, we can shoot 6, 8, or 10, right? And that all started right in Hartford, Connecticut, right? Samuel Lewis Colt. So, we have Colt firearms and all of that kind of stuff, right? If you go to, there's a church called the Church of the Good Shepherd. That was the church that his wife built in his honor. And if you actually go up to the church, you can see the gun parts in the masonry and all of that of the church,
Wow.
And so all of that is right here in our own hometown, right? Of Hartford. And so a lot of what you're talking about with regard to the kid who really doesn't know when their next meal is coming from, or the kid who says that they're poor, but they got Jordans, a cell phone, and a flat screen TV, is all up here. That's why, the Bible says, Romans, I think it's the 12th chapter, says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? So once your mind is renewed, you'll have the kid who doesn't particularly know where his next meal is coming from, but he's rich. And the kid who has, the Mercedes-Benz in the driveway and the Jordans and the whole nine, who's poor, because it's all a mindset, your grandfather who might say, wow, like this is crazy that we could look at people on the television, we have running water and all of that kind of stuff. To him, it's like, wow, you guys have like super abundance. But there's so many of us who look at where we currently are, and it's like, oh, I don't have the green Jordans like everybody else. I only got the red Jordans. You know what I mean? And so it really is a mindset shift. And that's one thing that, we're constantly challenged with, not only personally, but with kids as well. And just getting them to understand, a lot of kids are depressed based off of things that they see, quote unquote, on their block, when in reality, they have more than enough. They have more than they need. Like you say, we're throwing things away. We've started a composting club at Bloomfield High because we understand that there are a lot of people who take the food that they have, that they get for free, right? Take it for granted, and they will just throw it out. So it's like, hey, we got to use this. Maybe we could use this for the soil, to grow more fruit and grow more vegetables, because it's just not right how wasteful we are. There was a kid I went to school with who he was from Nepal, and he, first of all, we had an issue with him because he was a freshman living in our sophomore dorm. And I think it was just because the university didn't have enough housing. And so they said, hey, can he move in with you all, right? And of course, we weren't going to say no. There's a kid from Nepal. But he would go in the bathroom, and with us, we're used to just running water. To him, in his country, he was like, we don't have water like that. So I'm going to run the water to soap up, but the water is off all that time. And then when it's time to rinse off, I'll turn the water back on so I can just rinse off. So that way I don't waste as much water. With us, we got on him. Come on, man, you taking too long in the shower. The water's not even running. Are you washing? This and that and the other. But his perspective was, hey, we don't have enough water, right? Whereas with us, and our perspective growing up was, you always had more than enough water, right? I don't care if you did have to pay a water bill. Water is coming, right? And so it's all a difference in like the perspective of your mind. And if we could tap into the young kids, just like you did with that kid, like, hey, just because everybody else is doing it, don't throw this out. This is your neighborhood. Take pride in your neighborhood. Take pride in what you have. All of those types of things are character things that we can instill in kids so that no matter what the technology does, they have those roots. They have that foundation to say, hey, you know what? I need to be better because this is what my core says. Forget about what's going on the outside of me. Forget about what technology is doing. I have I have this structure, you know what I mean? I have these habits. I have the thought and the presence of mind to know this is how I'm going to govern my life because of what's going on up here.
Yes. So fast. That was amazing. I like that information, and I'm trying to think how to propose this idea. It's not really even a question. It is a question. How do One of the things that we had talked about this in text a little bit is when I started teaching, in I started as a behavior manager in East Hartford at
Mhm.
first, and it was kind of like the cycle that I see to this day. Like almost all the behavior manager were people of color, whether they were Hispanic, whether they were black or Jamaican, Barbadian, like wherever they were people of color. And then the teachers were all white.
Mhm.
And the first school I taught at was all white males. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 women. The principal was a woman, and then there was one female black teacher, and that was it.
Mm.
And then I went to Manchester and taught similar circumstances, but worked with an extraordinary old school. It was at a private school, black teacher. And then I had the privilege of going to Hartford,
Mhm.
Fox Middle School, 2005. And
Mhm.
it was the most diverse at that time school or situation I've ever seen. To this day has been unmatched. I worked on a
Mm.
team with 7 black male teachers, including myself, a
Who were
Jamaican,
some of the other
hat,
teachers you had
um,
with you?
Mr. Wilson from Windsor, the track coach.
Okay.
I remember Mr. Wilson. Mr. Hay, he might be a principal somewhere in Hartford, Jamaican. He
Okay.
just got here. Um, Ike, Ike, Ike. What's Ike's last name? Oh, he's my boy. I remember Ike. He was from New York.
Okay.
Played basketball. Played Division II basketball. He taught social studies. He's one of my good friends too. I can't remember his last name right now. Mr. Booker.
Okay.
Mr. Booker. Mr. Hardy. Mr. Hardy was a the assistant basketball coach for Weaver for years. He was
Okay.
a special education teacher. Our vice principal that oversaw us at the time was Miss Thomas.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember Miss Thomas, light skinned woman, very nice. And then I can't remember our guidance counselor; she was a black woman too. And
Okay.
so we had all men of color, and it was the most amazing thing. We had the boys cluster, so
Okay.
we had them come in certain ties, and we had that we had at fire drills. We had them on the line. They believed in us,
Yep.
and in
Yep.
2005 they believed in us, and we looked like that.
Mhm.
And you could try to say that doesn't matter, but it
Right.
does.
Absolutely.
And I will argue it sometimes on the other end in adjustment circumstances, like you have to adjust through life, like.
Right.
But it does matter when you see people that look like you that are successful, and not always
Absolutely.
the security guards or the behavior managers or the custodial staff but people that have power, like having all our principals were black. Dr. Andrew, I mean not Doctor Andrew Sorrell, he was from
Okay.
Barbados. Um, Miss Thomas, Mr. Neal, Sheldon Neal.
Yeah, I know Sheldon
Um,
Neal. Yep.
yep, and then Miss Francis.
Okay.
So that was the
Okay.
4 principals. So you look at that, and I don't need every team was probably had more black or Hispanic teachers on it than white at the time.
Mm.
And I would say that Cork Middle School was similar
Okay.
at the
Okay.
same time.
It's interesting because you don't see that a lot, right? And I think that people sometimes feel like, oh well, it's too many people of color, in one spot, right? And I've heard that argument before, right? Like,
No.
there's too many in Bloomfield. We we have a higher percentage than the state in terms of people of color who are educators, right? And I've heard people say, "Oh, well, it's almost like it's too many." And I'm thinking, your student body will often reflect, or I should say, your staff will often reflect who is in your student body, right? So if you go to Simsbury, West Hartford,
Mm-hmm.
Avon, the vast majority of educators are white. Vast majority of students are white. It just so happens to be that way, right? Um, and so when you are in a place where your student population is mostly a particular color, you almost like have to expect, or you would want that your staff who are going to be educators, the ones who are going to be the disseminators of academics and education, resemble, the students who they're teaching. That's at least how community schools normally work, right? Everyone comes from that particular community, and so
Mm-hmm.
your community should be reflective of, the student body, and vice versa. So it shouldn't be anything that's out of the ordinary. But unfortunately, in education in general, we don't have a lot of people of color who are, certified educators, and even non-certified educators.
Phew. And I spoke at Wesleyan last year about education to the state, and we had several teachers, and I had a teacher that was an art teacher, African American male, and he gave me some information. I looked up, and it shocked me. He was like, black males in Connecticut have decreased from 3% to almost 2%, and I was like, and then I look around because I've been teaching 25 years, and
Right.
I don't see a lot of young people of color coming into education anymore. Like I
Right.
did when I first started, I felt like people were going into education, whether it was PE or health or art, something they were going into education. And now we don't see that. And it's disheartening because the
Yeah.
kids need, and not to say that because I had some incredible teachers that were now of people of color.
Right.
Like that doesn't mean
Right.
you can teach because you're black. Don't never get me wrong.
Right.
You're not a good principal because you're black. Like that
Right. Right. Right.
is a mindset. Like you have to become
Right.
that.
Yes.
Um, but it does. But it helps. It helps
Yeah.
the student's perspective, and because even now, like I'm in a classroom, right? If I'm in the classroom with whether it's a white male or a white female, the students will always refer to the other person as the boss.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's learned.
right.
That's learned. Yeah. Yeah.
And in East Hartford, we have, since I've been there in this school, we have one African American male teacher. She's a principal. She was a teacher. She was worked with me, and she's the only one. And the high population of African Americans and Hispanics in East Hartford, the teachers don't represent close to the
Mm.
population. It's like the
Got it.
opposite. Like you may find more in my school. There's 3 male, 4 now because we have a PE teacher. So 4 male, 120 certified staff, 4 black males.
Oh, wow. So what do you attribute that to?
I used to think the test scores, right? I used to think the test, the praxis, etc.
Yeah.
Um, I think the idea of low pay,
Mm.
the and the idea of modern time is that the kids don't respect authority. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
because when I first started teaching, 2005, kids were the same way they are now. Like the kids haven't changed anything.
Mm.
Technology's changed. The kids, the only difference with the kids really is their respect for their whether some the sixth graders respect for an eighth grader. There's no more like it used to be,
Right.
and the
Right.
sixth graders respect for an adult. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see where I had kids in Fox Middle School during a time where two rival gangs were really going at it, and it was bad.
Mm,
And there was some really bad situations that happened. And even in those situations, the toughest kids in the school would always respect if I got in front of them in a situation. They wouldn't try to punch me or
yep.
push me. Like they had a respect. And then they would be like, "Oh, That's House, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it has nothing to do with you." Like they would apologize because
Yeah.
that respect for an adult,
Yep.
was there. And I used to be the cool teacher. And I told this story
Mhm.
to somebody recently is that because I was an athlete, I can
Yep.
always throw out the basketball or the football, and I was cool to the kids.
Yep.
And now I'm only cool to the kids that are nerds. Like I'm now all of a sudden,
Mm,
and I was never a nerd. So, but now I'm cool to the smart kids because I preach motivation, I preach discipline, I preach these
right.
things all day long, and it
Right.
resonates with them. But
Yep.
the athletes no more. The athletes are not the athletes that I know, right?
Right.
And so the new days athletes like I'm not going to practice today, but I'm gonna play video games, but I'm gonna get better. Like so
Right.
the molding is different, and but the behaviors and stuff really haven't changed that much. It's just the behavior towards the adults.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that the whole idea, I don't know if they understand the pay thing yet. A lot of them, I think they think that they know,
Right.
that what pays the most and what doesn't pay, because at the end of the day, when you're a child, you're not paying any bills, you really don't know how much
Hmm.
100,000 is compared to 50,000. You know what I mean? All you
Hmm.
know is, oh yeah, this person's got $1 million contract, but you have no idea what that $1 million contract actually does. It sounds good, but you don't
Hmm.
know. But that piece, and this is what I hear from kids, that piece about the respect of authority. It's so funny when I hear a student say, like, I'm not going to be a teacher. I see how how these kids act towards the teacher. And it's like, you're one of those kids. I hope you know that, right?
Hmm.
And so I think the prestige of it is not there, right? But if you can get a kid who's like, hey, you know what, I really want to make a difference. And these are kids who are your like student council kids, your kids who have started clubs and are like the president of their club or whatever the case is. Might not be the strongest academic student, or it might be the strongest academic student who's like, hey, I want to give back, I want to do this, that, and the other. Those are the kids that I feel will be more prone to go into education. And then the other part of that is showing them like what is actually possible. I think the reason why a lot of kids want to go to the league or want to go to, play professional football, whatever the case is because one, they love the sport, they like playing it, they have fun playing it. And then two, these superstars go out of their way to try to make it seem like it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? You know what I mean? I get to wear this, I get to do that, I get to be swaggy, I have a social media presence, all of that kind of stuff. But we have not necessarily done that, by and large, for education.
Hmm.
A lot of times folks come in like, oh, I guess I'm here on Monday, or I guess and it's like, come on, man, you get to do, first of all, what you want to do with your life, right? That's the key. That's the biggest thing that you could do. You get to do what you want to do with your life, and you get to have fun and make it as fun as you want it to be, or as boring as you want it to be. But somebody is watching. And when the kids see, I was the same way. My kids saw that I had a ball. And a lot of my students, it's funny, a lot of my students went into science. I'm talking about when I was teaching. A lot of my kids went into science. I see them now. Oh, what you doing? I went and I studied biology. I did this, that, and the other. And a lot of my kids became educators as well. And so it's interesting. I don't think that it's a coincidence that we have a good relationship and this is what they went into. Now, I'm not going to say it's all me. But I'm just saying, I think there's a correlation between how we did science and how we have fun to some of the things that they do and some of the things that they remember even now. So we got to make it fun. We got to make it energetic. There's a guy, Freeman Rabowski. He used to be the president of University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And I remember where I was standing when he was like, "They can't pass the test, Jesse. They can't pass the test." And I was like, "What you mean?" He's like, the practice. They can't pass the test. Now though, is easier. I'll say. I'm not going to discredit anybody who has not passed the test, but it's easier to have study guides and all of that kind of stuff to get into education. So if you want to do it, you definitely can, and I believe that is a worthwhile venture for sure.
It definitely has, because there's so much more than just teaching.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much more. So a twist. So another thing that I find and with students is some of my most disciplined, respectful kids come from very profound faith-based homes. And it doesn't
Mm,
matter if it's Muslim, if it's
right,
Judaism, if it's Buddhism, because we're dealing with people from all over in Hartford, and
right,
we're dealing with people all over the world, really.
right.
And the faith, when I first started teaching, like, I was living, I was of the world. Like I was just
Mhm,
teaching and living in the world. And the
mhm,
last several years, I teach with my faith. I
mhm.
don't announce it every day to the kids, but when I'm getting frustrated, I say a prayer to myself.
Yep,
When I have a headache, I pray that this headache doesn't affect my students. And th- my student, I see it. Like I'll see a kid's demeanor, and I can almost. I haven't been wrong yet when I present to them, like do you believe in God? And like, oh yeah, and then they start to
mhm.
tell their story, and it's like it's just something about, especially a young person that's already has that spiritual base and how
Yeah.
they move forward. It's incredible. Do you see that? Like I know the high school may be like a different animal, but do you see that with your students?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there one of the reasons why is because there is a code, a standard, a set series of principles, all of that kind of stuff that a principled person lives according to, right? And so, or a faith-based person lives according to. And if you are true to what you say, you don't really step outside of that. So it becomes um something that's expected. It becomes something that I'll use the analogy of music versus noise, right? If you have a person who everybody loves music, but most people hate noise, right? And the difference is that music conforms to a set series of patterns or rules and regulations. Um, that's where that harmony comes in. Um, but noise is sporadic. Noise is um, crazy. It's all over the place, and nobody likes that. And so, the students who tend to do better live according to a set series of principles, right? And those things are easy to recognize, and so that makes that person a lot more endearing. That makes that person a lot more manageable and pleasant to be around versus a person who is unprincipled, right? A person who lives according to the noise, right? 1 minute I'm hot, 1 minute I'm cold. Don't step on my toe, I'm liable to go off and all of that. And then when it comes to learning, learning requires a certain amount of focus. And so if you are that person who's living a chaotic lifestyle, it's hard for you to focus on any one thing so that you don't learn. And that lack
Mm,
of learning comes with added pressure of, hey, we really got to get you to do A, B, and C. But you're like, no, I don't want to do A, B, C, right? I want to do A, M, X. That's what I want to do. And then tomorrow I want to do D, Z, F. And it's just like, how can we really, really focus this person? And I think that a lot of that does have to do with your faith, right? A belief in a higher power. For me, it is a belief in Jesus Christ. And um, it's interesting to see like how, without even saying it, people can recognize there is a code, right? People, oh, well, you know what? Well, I know that, we're blessed and we do this. And folks will throw out different things to try to see like, hey, where do you stand? And then there's also that piece of de facto segregation, right? That
Mm,
like my kind, not like my kind. And if I resonate with what you're saying, we have the same belief system, I can feel more comfortable with you. I want to hear more about what you have to say. And it makes it a lot easier with those particular students.
mm, that's deep, and I like that. And yeah, and I've learned through education has taught me so much.
Hmm.
Um, like it's broadened my thought process and really opened it up, especially spiritually, because I like my grandfather. One of the things he used to say to me was, "Never judge someone by their belief, by the belief system," meaning that
Mm,
like Jewish, Muslim, like whatever it may be. He goes because um that's not what Jesus. That's not what the man of Jesus does. What the man of Jesus does is
mm,
they set the example. So if
mm.
you set the example and you treat everybody the example, no matter what you think, you
Yeah,
rub off on each other. And
yeah,
that sounds like the same way you approach like education is. I'm going to be the
yeah,
standard,
yep,
and whether or not you are atheist, Judas, doesn't matter who you are. I'm going to give you the same respect that I would
that's
give a
right,
fellow Christian, and
that's
that
right.
will rub off and that will resonate, and they look at you and say, "Wow, that's a good person.
Yeah,
Who is he? Like where
yeah,
is that root?" And then they may
yeah,
want to learn more about that root. In some way, that's what I
yep,
mean. The messenger. Like some people have to go knock on your door. Other people just have to be who they are, and
yeah,
you will have followers, and all of those are needed in this world. But it doesn't
mhm,
mean because you don't go knock on doors that you're not trying to bring people to Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah. The Bible says we are living epistles ever read of men, right? And we know an epistle is like a book, right? And so somebody's always watching. It's so interesting. Like sometimes somebody will say something to me and I'm like, where'd you get that? Oh, I saw this post that you did last week, or I saw it. And I'm thinking nobody's really paying attention. You know what I mean? I'm just on here, and but people are watching, and there's another scripture that says, let your light so shine before men that they might see
Mm,
your good works and glorify the Father which is in heaven. So we're
mm,
supposed to let this light shine, right? We should be. I said last week, or no, week before last, because we were on vacation last week. It was a day. I don't know what was going on, to be honest with you. It was an interesting day, right? And I said to one of our staff members, I said, today, like, stunk, like today. And she said, Mr. White, I've never heard you say that before. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't
mm,
curse. I didn't. She said, like, you're always positive. You're always, and I had to like check myself, like, yeah, that's true. Like, but that particular day, it was like, yo, what's going on with today? you know
mm,
and but somebody saw the light and they recognized there's something different today that I don't normally see from this guy. You know what I mean? Normally he's positive. Normally he, can sort of like roll with the punches and whatever's going on, find a solution to it. But there's something else going on. So, that's how we ought to be, right? The light that shines in darkness. Because
mm.
there are going to be some dark times. We live, going back to what you were talking about in the beginning, in environments that are sometimes like overwhelmed by darkness. But we got to be that light if we're gonna show people the way.
Mm. Yes, yes, this is good stuff. I'm liking this, and we could talk forever, but we're gonna wrap up because I know you
Hmm.
got things to do, and I
Yes, sir.
appreciate your time. Really appreciate your time. But I'm gonna end this with I just made this up with the tear jerking session. I
All
like
right.
and that's that educational moment where like it wasn't supposed to, like you didn't go into it thinking this was gonna happen, and something happened that was just unexpected. That just basically you had to compose it. Maybe you did cry, but maybe you had to compose yourself because of the situation. But it was so emotional, in a good way,
Hmm.
not a negative way. Like you. It was like, oh my goodness, what I was doing, it worked.
Yeah. I
I'm gonna
will
let you go
say this.
first.
This year, or I say this year, in my current role, right, as principal, every single year at graduation is one of those moments. I think it's just the culmination of everything that we've not only done for the year for this particular group of students, but what we've done over the past 4 years or however long they've been with us, and it's coming to an end, right? So these are students who are, in many cases, students who I see more than I even see my natural family, right? Or those who I call like my friends. And so I see them every single day for maybe 7 hours, right? During the day, or even longer if we have games or things of that nature. And so I get the opportunity to see them come in as freshmen, those who are naive to the system, those who think that they know, but they really don't know. And over the course of the 4 years, they have grown to be young adults, those who are going out and are going to make young adult decisions. And so, on the one hand, it's sad because the old them is gone. And now I'm like standing before them looking at the new, who they are going to be. And so it's a chapter that closes. And so that's the sad piece. But then the happy part of it is that I got to play a little part in who they have become. That somebody's going to remember one word that I said and they're going to take it, right? And that is almost like immortality, right? That is legacy, right? When somebody says, "Hey, I remember Mr. White said A, B, and C," right? Um, and then also the fact that I didn't have to do it by myself, but that we as a staff were able to come together and create something beautiful, along with parents, the community, coaches, and all of that. So it really it's a profound, like deep, and sometimes tear-jerking moment. A couple of years ago, 2023, I had the opportunity to be the principal when my oldest daughter graduated from high school. She went to my high school. And to stand there and have her name on the same diploma as my name, my grandfather's name, my father's name. You know what I mean? So like little things like that I think very, very deeply about, that
Yes, yes.
have a profound impact and can sometimes be a very emotional time. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to say on national TV, right, that I cry. But
Nice,
but sometimes it could be tear jerking for sure.
nice, nice. My moment comes when I first started teaching. I taught at a private school, and I had
Mhm,
these 7 students, and I basically had them for like 2 years because it was a self-contained um, school for kids that didn't make it in their other school.
mhm,
And I was struggling in life. Like I was in life, and I was successful on like the flower. The flower looked good, but the root was a
mhm,
mess. And
mhm,
these kids were saving my life because I was getting up every day because their lives were, in my opinion, worse than mine. So they
mm,
needed me. So it made me get up every day and go
yeah,
serve these students. And they ended up moving on because it was middle school, and they did very well. I taught them all how to play chess, so all 7 of them could play chess.
mhm.
All of them were good. I should have lost one time, and I distracted one of my ADHD kids by telling him I distracted him, so he had me in checkmate. And he made the wrong move, and I ended up beating him. And but later on in life, I ended up seeing one of the kids. Like he's a grown man now, father,
Mhm,
and recognized him right away, just a taller version of him. He's like, "What's the housing?" He was talking to me, and he's going hiking with me now in the future. Or he said to
mm,
me, he goes, he said to me, "You saved my life," and I was like, "You saved my life," and I was like,
mm,
so I asked him, "Why did I save your life?" He goes, "Because you were the first male that 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 you like love that I thought loved me."
mm.
Like, so this kid went his whole
Wow,
life, no, didn't really know his father, didn't know his grandfather, didn't really know his mom, only knew his grandmother.
wow.
And so, like, I was the first person that, like, and he was like, I was so bad. And they weren't bad. Like, to me, they weren't bad, right? But he was like, I was
Right.
so mean to you. I was so bad to you. And you kept, every day you came back and gave me the same energy you gave me the day before. So that was like tear
Mm.
jerking. Like, and we're in the mall, like,
Yeah,
we're like a grocery store or
yeah,
something. And I was sitting there like,
yeah.
oh, so that is the tear-jerking moment. But it has been great.
Yeah.
I know you have things to do, and I was hoping it came, but now I had to read Unbreakable because that's the closest thing I could think to of anti-cant. But I ordered the shirt. I don't know if you get like a little ding when somebody orders the shirt or not.
Yes.
But
Yep.
I didn't get it yet.
And it should be coming soon. But yes, I do get like a notification. I want to say thank you so much for supporting. And I look forward to seeing, you rocking that anti-cant gear. That's one of the things that we're really, really on it. You know what I mean? With anti-cant and just trying to get the students to understand and just the world to understand that there's absolutely unequivocally nothing you can't do, especially as long as God is on your side. So yeah.
And that segue is perfect for the ending. This has been another Shades of a Man podcast where we just don't talk about the outside. We dig deep into you. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow, sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know what that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man.